bacon mushroom cheeseburger. This thing is so delicious that I guarantee it's going to be a big hit with your friends, family, and you're going to love it too. So let's get into it by assembling the ingredients. Again, there's not too many. So let's get started by just slicing up our mushrooms. Like as I said, I'm using shiitake mushrooms, mostly because they hold their consistency when they're being grilled or cooked. They don't shrink too much and they don't release a lot of water. Now, if you're going to make some kind of like creamy sauce, you could also, maybe you can use like white mushrooms or maybe portobello mushrooms. You know, use whatever you like, whatever you want to eat, basically. In this case, shiitake mushrooms are very easy to find and they're not too expensive. Actually, the ones I chose are kind of the more fancier of shiitake mushrooms. Anyway, so I sliced them pretty thin, but not too thin. And next we'll move on to the ground beef mixture, which will you add an egg and the panko breadcrumbs. Now the reason why I use these is it extends it makes more burgers and it makes it a little bit more moist when it comes to cooking. So of course add salt and pepper. And now we'll start to mix it together with our hands, being sure to kind of make sure we distribute the seasoning, the eggs, the breadcrumbs, just to make sure it's all evenly distributed. From there, we'll start to roll it into balls. Now, they're not quite the same size as a tennis ball. They're a little bit smaller, but not as small as, say, like a golf ball. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. Just try to imagine, like, when you smash this down, is it going to be the same size as your bun? Is it going to be a little bit too small, a little bit too big? So also take into account shrinkage when we start cooking them as well. So I found that a little bit smaller than a tennis ball is pretty ideal. And with this, you'll be able to make probably maybe 10 burgers and maybe a couple of smaller ones. That's what I usually have, a couple left over for smaller ones for the kids. Now, when it comes to cooking them, I just rub it on the pan a little bit to use the natural fat from the pork. I don't really add any oil, don't really need to. By using the beef and pork mix, the fat from the pork will grease the pan well enough and we don't have to worry about that. When it comes to smashing down the burger, generally you have a kind of like tool. It's kind of flat, it's got a nice handle on the back, but I didn't realize that mine was actually kind of cheap and not very good quality, and it snapped when I tried making this video. So I had to turn to a cake serving knife, but it works just fine and it's getting the job done. I know it's not correct, but hey, you use what you got, right? So after giving it a nice little smash for all three of them, and to follow up, we use the spatula as well, but as you can see, the spatula is plastic, and I was worried about maybe the spatula itself snapping, so I had to be a little bit careful. Maybe a little worried about things breaking now. Alright, so smashing the burgers down, it makes them kind of thin, so they cook pretty quickly, which is nice. Alright, so now we'll add some of our onions that we sliced up very, very thin. And the reason why you slice it so thin is because when it comes to cooking them or frying them on the other side, the thinner they are, the better they'll glaze and they'll be able to kind of melt onto the burger. And that's what we're going for. We want these onions to kind of melt into the burger, which is really, really great. So I gave it some more time, and now we'll add the bacon. I always add the bacon next because when I add the cheese, I'm going to use the cheese as kind of like glue to hold the bacon on. So at least one full slice per burger. As you notice, this one I kind of broke in half. That way I can kind of wrap it around the burger, make sure all the cheese stays on as much as possible. When it comes to making burgers, I want the cheese and all the ingredients to stay on the burger as much as possible. I mean, cleaning the plate is fine, of course, but if I can keep it on the burger itself, hey, that's a win for me. So basically, we're just going to cook these until the cheese melts. The burger itself is pretty much cooked, so we can just reduce the heat here and just give it time for the cheese to melt. We could also cover it with the pan too, to encourage the cheese to melt too. But in this case, I wanted to show how the cheese is melting because it looked kind of cool. So now let's get while the burgers are resting, let's give the mushrooms a chance to kind of toast themselves. And I don't know why, but it's so interesting to watch it shrink, you know, like all the water all the water escaping from the mushrooms. And the mushrooms are sliced pretty thin, so it's not going to take too long. And like with shiitake mushrooms, they don't have a lot of water in them, so it's not going to take that long to toast them. And there's some also, you notice too, there's some salt in the pan too. That's just more just to add seasoning. And with that, here is the first burger for the kids. Next, let's assemble a burger, and this one's going to be for my wife, so it's got to be perfect. Now these buns that I'm using already actually these buns are kind of special. They have butter on the inside, so when you toast them or when you microwave them, if you do that, the butter will naturally melt. In this case, I'm relying on the burger's heat themselves to kind of melt the butter that's already in the bread. It's pretty nifty, pretty nice, and it's pretty delicious. So now plating up, so just putting some toasted mushrooms on top of the burgers. And with the other side of the bun, I use as kind of like glue to hold it together. I use the ketchup and mustard to hold together the mushrooms onto the burger. It's kind of like glue. As you can see, I'm adding some lettuce too. I forgot to put it in the opening. Sorry about that. But hopefully you have some lettuce to add to your burger. And there we have it. 2 bacon smashed mushroom burgers. I really hope you enjoyed this. I really hope that you give us a try too, because it really is delicious. It's really simple, really easy, and it makes for a great dinner, or you can pack it up for lunch. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you give it a try yourself. And if you could, as always, please like and subscribe to this channel. And if you have any suggestions or things you